Hey.
What up, though? What up, though? What up, though?
Evening, gentlemen.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, to episode 42 of Uncomfy Truths. I am your co-host, Conservative Brother Daily, back with another one. Sorry, we missed a week last week, so don't hold it against us. This is still a grassroots effort. We all got day jobs. We all got family things going on. So I hope you didn't go through truth-telling withdrawal all last week, but we're back again to kind of, spread the uncomfy truths, spreading common sense in a growing nonsense world. And we back at it again. I'm joined by my esteemed co-host, Conspiracy Brother. How you doing out there, good sir?
Hey.
And Pastor Green, who's been killing the game as he came in our show last year and continue to help us make sense of all the craziness going on. How you doing, Pastor Green?
I'm good, brothers. How are you brothers doing?
All right. Just doing what we can, man. Just doing what we can. So without further ado, let's hop right into it. Let's go ahead and dive into the topics. I'm actually pulling them up as we speak. I had a little computer snafu just a minute ago. But our first topic we're about to talk about, the Trump-Russia-Ukraine peace talks. So obviously, I think we touched on our last show, the little scuffle at the White House when, Ukraine President Vladimir Zelensky showed up, acted all mean and tough, in his generic military fatigues, sitting down with the president, talking about, hey, we need aid, we still need help with this war, so we need you, but I'm pretending like, I'm just expecting for you to give me the bag, so it's been very interesting since that little scuffle. I think Trump made some sort of threat online, like we're withdrawing all our aid. A week later, Zelensky kind of, started. I got the screen share now, Conspiracy Brother. But now all of a sudden, Zelensky's acting right again, So basically, I think this is a good source from the Hill. I'll go ahead and read part of this article. This is just from today. 5 things to know ahead of the Russia-Ukraine ceasefire talks. This is from the publication The Hill. U.S. officials. Trump is focused on a limited ceasefire in the Ukraine war as he seeks to get the ball rolling on broader peace talks between Moscow and Kyiv. Russian President Vladimir Putin this week rejected a full 30-day ceasefire proposed by the U.S. and backed by Ukraine. But he signaled openness to a narrower truce focused on energy infrastructure, though many questions remain about its terms and implementation. U.S. officials are expected in Saudi Arabia next week with reported plans to hold separate meetings with Ukrainian and Russian delegations on Monday to hash out details. Here's what each side wants in the talks and why Trump's NATO plans are a wild card. What Trump wants, while Trump has fallen short of his promise to end the war in 24 hours, he can say there is forward movement in the talks. So far, his strategy is focused on pressuring Ukraine into concessions by leveraging military and intelligence assistance while offering Putin a choice between economic carrots or sticks. Economic deals seem to be the priority for Trump in both talks with Ukraine and Russia. In Trump's call with Putin, he emphasized that improved ties between the two countries has huge upside, including geopolitical stability. Trump has been pressuring Ukraine to sign a mineral extraction deal, and he raised a new idea after calling on Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky this week, taking ownership of Ukrainians' nuclear power plants. All right, going back to getting Chernobyl vibes, but I think it's in a good way. Zelensky said the discussion focused on Ukraine's nuclear power plant. I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that name. Call it Zaporizhzhia, which is under Russian occupation, and whether there might be a U.S. role in bringing it back into Ukraine's hands, perhaps as part of territorial talks. Trump is reportedly interested in the plant as part of powering the mining industry in Ukraine after the war. He said Friday that contracts are being negotiated over dividing up the lands as part of the final peace deal. Putin declared annexation of 4 Ukrainian territories, including Zapo, despite not having full territorial control and international rejections. Benjamin Schmidt, senior fellow at the University of Pennsylvania Kleiman Center for Energy Policy, said the idea of U.S. control of the nuclear plant was problematic for multiple reasons. Putin, frankly, is not going to be satisfied with any of that because his war aims to undermine Ukrainian sovereignty fully, he said, and so the notion that the United States having, let's say, control, if not ownership, in some way over Zapo power plant that would have significant downside risk for any commercial firm that would want to take on that risk. So I want to actually just stop there. I want to go ahead and get conspiracy brother Pastor William Green your thoughts, and then maybe one of you guys could read the rest of the article, because I don't want to just hear myself talk the whole time. But floor is open. Maybe Pastor Green, whoever wants to kind of give their thoughts.
Yeah, I really think that agreement is problematic also, because I really think the United States really should cut ties with Ukraine. I mean, when you think about what Ukraine means to America, it's really nothing. Ukraine is simply a laundering country for United States government. Dirty money goes in and dirty money comes back to United States by means of Ukraine. And I really think, the economic implications. I mean, Ukraine already has made a deal with Europe, England, they basically have all the ownership of those mines, of those resources. So I really think, the United States is really assuming too much, in my opinion, because they already made this deal with European countries, England, mainly England, and England is owner of what? Said they made a deal for over 90% of those minerals. They already have a deal with England. So I really don't see why United States is even maintaining ties with Ukraine economically, because again, we're getting the short end of the stick, it seems.
That's fair. That's very fair. Definitely at this point, I said this once and I said this before. NATO is the new Soviet Union. NATO is the new USSR. Everybody wants to forget, once again, the U.S. signed on paper, not Biden's auto pen, by the way, but when the Berlin Wall fell and then the Soviet Union agreed to get dissolved in 91, the U.S. sat across the table with Russia and said, okay, and they were like, okay, we will end the Soviet Union, our only agreement that was in writing that they handshake that they agreed on is that Ukraine can't join NATO and NATO won't expand beyond the east.
Germany.
And Germany, yeah. But what have we been seeing the past 20, 30 years? We see more encroachment, NATO becoming this bloated machine, and then the EU and the EU kind of serving as their lapdog partnership. And once again, just how people say like, oh, just how when people say, oh, the Israel-Palestine conflict started October 7th, when all of a sudden Israel was attacked by Palestine unprovoked. When people say that, that's just as ignorant. It's just as ignorant as when people say, oh, Putin just invaded Ukraine February 2022 unprovoked. You sound just as ignorant in both aspects. So that's just the kind of the surface level of my thoughts, that NATO's a new Soviet Union. They've been pushing this for years, trying to get NATO in, and all U.S. had to do was just stay out of this ongoing encroachment that they've been doing when they reneged out of this agreement where the Soviet Union dissolved, saying they wouldn't expand. But conspiracy brother, you go right ahead.
Yeah, so pardon me, audience. I had a separate call, so typically I'm free at this time, but I had to step away for a bit, so I'm not exactly sure of everything that was read in the article. And if I was able to overhear some of it. If you want me to finish reading the article,
yeah, finish reading. Yeah, I've read half of it, what Trump wants, and now this is, you want to read what Putin wants, so we can finish discussing.
Yeah, what I was going to say though, as far as we deal with issues of the agreements between the countries and things like that. Hearing a little bit of it, the thing that the world needs to understand, right? During the Cold War, and Pastor Green can definitely understand this better than we can, but during the Cold War, the world operated on two extreme poles, right? There was the Soviet Union and there was the United States. And with that, there was a certain degree of respect that each country or bloc, meaning the West and the Soviet Union, had to give to each other, because there was an understanding of the control and strength that each country had, or block of countries had. And as the Soviet Union fell, America / the West, but really America and its vassal states, really looked at the world as its playground, right? So you saw the rise in neoconservative foreign policy, right? In a way that you didn't see when the Soviet Union was around, right? Because you can't just go and bomb everywhere and bomb anything you want and do whatever and invade when you have another, co-equal power who opposes you. So what happened at that point is America, like people say, you smell yourself, you feel yourself. America, the West, NATO, those kinds of neocon, that ideology, they really began to feel invincible. And it reminds me, I've talked about this song before, It's Your World, on Common's album B. I think the album came out in 2005. But one of the lines in the poem his father says at the end of the song is, "Be not satisfied as temporary king of the mountaintop," right? And so that's kind of what happened to the United States and the West. They were satisfied as temporary king of the mountaintop, and they didn't realize it was temporary, right? So you outsource all your jobs to China, who's a communist country, and they tell us authoritarian, right? But you're fine to completely prop up their economic system, right? And undergird their economic system by making them the factory of the world at the expense of your own production capacity and production capability, right? And then you are so short-sighted and self-aggrandized in the way that you do things. I think I used that word right. That you don't even consider that you'll ever have another person challenge your position, another country, another group. And so now what we see, like you said, some 30 years later, Berlin Wall fell in 91, was it? Or did it fall in 89? And the Warsaw Pact was dissolved in 91 to 93. Again, I don't remember. I was born in 88. I think Berlin Wall fell in 89. I think the Warsaw Pact was dissolved in 91. And I think the Soviet Union completely broke apart in 93. But my dates could be all wrong. It's not necessarily relevant, materially relevant to the preciseness of those numbers is not materially relevant to my point. But in that 30-year span of time, you saw the U.S. essentially remake the world in its own image, right? Or attempt to. And in that time, Russia continued to operate within its own sphere of influence and rebuild itself, right? From the ruins of the Soviet Union falling apart and making relationships around the world in a way that is a contrast to the way America does things. In America, they call it soft power. I don't see it as soft power. I see it as, hard power. I see it as hard power, maybe projected as soft power to the American media, or not the American media, but to the American citizenry, but to the people on the ground, and maybe to the rest of the world. It's hard power. They see the truth. They get a chance to experience the truth. And so, long story short, as far as these negotiations, Russia has nukes. And at the end of the day, China has nukes, and South Korea is developing nukes and has them. And so the reality is you have to navigate a world in which you don't have a monopoly on power, you don't have a monopoly on force, and you don't have some ace in the hole as it pertains to technology or technological advancement or market manipulation or monetary policy or whatever, right? You have to figure out, and I think in a lot of ways Trump understands this. I really do believe this. As a businessman, right? He knew he was never the wealthiest real estate developer, right? He was never the wealthiest real estate owner, but he understood that he lived in a world where I could be a billionaire and you could be a billionaire and you could be a billionaire. And I might not be the biggest billionaire, but I'm good with 3 billion, which is what was estimated his worth. And you might have 10, but I still got 3. And you might have 50, but I still got 3. And you might have 100 million, but I still got 3 billion. And so we figure out how to all work together in this world to get our money and be safe and happy. And so I think this is the unique situation Trump brings to the equation of U.S. foreign policy as it pertains to deals, right? Because he talks about deals, and we joke about deals, maybe not on this channel specifically, but in the media, they talk about, oh, he wants to make a deal. But I think that's the unique perspective he brings as a businessman to the idea of global deal making, right? There's enough for everybody to be happy, to be satisfied. I don't have to be number one in the way that I'm 1 and everybody else is 0. Maybe I'm 1 and somebody else is 5 and somebody else is 2 and somebody else is 3. But I'm 1, right? There's 1 through 10. And I'm 1 and we file in line. And so what the neocon ideology does not like about Trump is that he's willing to concede in order to make a deal. And the American people like that. In general, American people like take care of home, make the world safe, stay out of it, right? The majority of us would like to stay out of it. I watched a documentary years ago on Netflix talking about what would happen if the U.S. wasn't the world's police. And I didn't ever look into who made it or what. But it essentially tried to justify the U.S. being the world's police. And I disagreed with it, but it was an interesting idea because they portray it as some benevolent issue. But at the end of the day, when you look at us militarily, and this is why, conservative brother, I sent you that video, and I'll send it to you if you were interested, Pastor Green. But it was a video talking about from a guy named Sean Fu on YouTube, talking about Trump is going to implement a trade barrier here, basically where you have to pay in to sell goods and services or products in this country. You'll have to pay like $700 billion a year to begin to sell products in this country, to import goods here or to export goods into the United States. And people in the comments said, "Oh, America's," they were European and all from all over the world saying America's a dying empire. And as much as I can say that I'm an American, I can say that I can gripe about how I feel like our government doesn't satisfy my needs as an American citizen. What I do know and recognize also is that it is at the expense of the American citizen that Europe is able to divert so much of its monies to their social security and social welfare programs that they don't have to spend on their military because my government is doing it, right? And so you call my country a failing and dying empire when it is precisely because my country has spent so much money protecting yours, whether the threats are real or completely fictionalized in order to justify the amounts of money spent for the military industrial complex, that you are able to do what you're doing. If you had to spend the amounts of money necessary for your countries to protect themselves from the threats that you have convinced each other exist, and we didn't have the military bases in Europe, and we didn't have the naval vessels in the Atlantic Ocean, the North Atlantic, in the Mediterranean, in the Baltic areas, in the Arctic. You see all these different regions around the world that we protect at the expense of the greater needs of American citizens for the benefit of Europeans, for the benefit of Israel, right? Because we've talked about how we've talked about this. When Obama was president in 2013, he signed a 10-year, $30 billion military aid package for Israel, $3 billion a year for 10 years. Detroit needed $18 billion to get out of bankruptcy, and the United States government didn't do it. Yet you're willing to give $30 billion to a country who does not pay taxes here and who has no historic allegiance or benefit to this country at all, right? No strategic military, financial, commodities, nothing, right? Israel as a modern nation has only been around since 48, right? So no historic benefit to the United States at all. But they've been willing to give them $30 billion over 10 years. When the Detroit, Michigan, which is one of the main drivers of American industrialization, one of the main hubs for infrastructure during World War II, right? With the plants and all that stuff, you give them nothing. And there are cities all around this country who have played a significant role, right, in the building up and the steadying of American life that have failed, have gone away. Gary, Indiana, Benton Harbor, Michigan, right? Just to name some. East St. Louis, Illinois, right? I mean, we could go down the line. Buffalo, New York, right? But these American cities who have played a vital role in industrializing the United States, making it the economic power that it is in the modern time, have gone to hell in the name of global aid. So I'm going to stop. Sorry I went so long. Forgive me, but I wanted to set the tone based on what I heard. And I mean, if you want to go to another article, I'm more than willing to stop because I know I talked a lot longer than I expected. But that, all that really, it fires me up because I can say bad things about America. My family's bones are buried here. My family built this country. Right?
Yeah.
You can't talk about my mama, but I can talk about her. Right?
That's right. Oh, conspiracy brother. I just appreciate it. I appreciate the deep dive in context. Yeah, we do want to finish out this topic though, but I do appreciate putting things in perspective and giving and pretty much opening up people's ways of thinking to the left, right, Democrat, Republican. Like we got to have a bigger sort of conversation, an uncomfy conversation. But Pastor Green, if you want to either give any additional thoughts on this, or if you would be so kind to read the rest of the article, then we can just kind of wrap up the topic. If you can, Pastor Green.
The last comment I would like to give on this is that Zelensky, at the core, he just doesn't get it. He still thinks that Ukraine could be part of NATO.
Yep.
And that was the initial reason for this conflict in the first place. And you know, he's bringing a butter knife to a gunfight. And Trump told them that already. You don't have the military resources. If America didn't back you, this war would have been over in 2 weeks. But yet, he let the European nations put that battery back in his back, and he's still demanding to be a part of NATO. So I just think America just needs to cut ties with Ukraine and just let the chips fall where they may.
Amen. Amen. So Pastor Green, did you want to read the rest of the article, or should we just move on? Your call.
We could just move on.
All right.
We got a lot to cover.
Yeah, we do. All right. Good stuff, y'all. Once again, I'll do a quick shameless plug, as we need to do. So once again, guys, you guys are watching Uncomfy Truths. We do these shows bi-weekly, typically on Sunday evenings. We used to always promote like this exact time, but sometimes things can change. But remember, you can follow us. We are on Rumble as well as YouTube. YouTube's a little bit on my shit list, if you will. Excuse my French. Because I think they took down Conspiracy Brother, our last episode something 41. About medical misinformation. So our episode 41 got taken down, but luckily that's why we have Rumble as a backup, as well as YouTube, Rumble, as well as Odyssey. We're also on Odyssey. We're a little more passive on there, small following. But yeah, you guys can see here, establishment don't like us very much. Some sort of vague community note about or message we got about medical misinformation. Conspiracy Brother, you want to speak on that? I know we were trying to get that episode back, and YouTube just not having it.
Yeah, so I appealed it, but they, and this is all BS. I don't know how they're determining that. We had an article where we actually read from a news source, so I don't really remember. I mean, they don't give you any details.
Exactly.
And they said, we got a warning, and so we could watch some kind of. It was like, it almost sounded like some 1984 reprogramming stuff, but it's like you can
watch your mouth.
You could go to a class. You could do a class, like a 90-minute class or something, and get the strike removed. Not a strike; it was a warning removed. And it was like some BS. It's like, bro, but I mean, obviously, this is what I expected. But if you go on MSNBC or CNN or those channels, and you see, or ABC News, and you look at the videos where they say, hey, if you wear a mask, you won't get it. If you're vaccinated, you can't spread it. Those videos are up. Those channels aren't demonetized. That's factually incorrect. And even now, this might still get our video taken down for me even saying this. So you know what, man? YouTube is full of it. And this is why we were on Rumble. We weren't on YouTube. And Conservative Brother was like, no, we need to go on YouTube because it'll expand our profile. And I said, okay, but I don't know how long we're going to be on here. So we've already been on here longer than I expected. But, it is what it is.
It is what it is. And I like that point about just wear the mask, just comply. Just get the vax, get the jab in the arm, get the mark of the beast in your forehead or your palm or whatever it was. So yeah, we're gonna keep doing what we're doing. YouTube can kick rocks, and that's why we got Rumble and Odyssey for. All right, y'all. So moving on, next topic: Trump dismantling the Department of Education. So this was a long time coming. Trump's cabinet pick was Linda McMahon, and she's kind of going in there and doing what was supposed to be done. So obviously there's still going to be some rough barriers ahead with Congress, because it's going to be officially Congress has to do an official vote for it, but he can at least do this stuff now. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think we need to read up on a topic, but I mean, Candace Owens has covered this. Even the NAACP, you can look up footage. I think Candace played it on her show, where the NAACP, they even filed a few years ago a formal complaint against the Department of Education, where you have just complete decline of children's test scores, of just public schools that are just in ruin. Obviously we're out here in Michigan, me and Conspiracy Brother, Detroit public schools, all you got to say. Obviously, not to condemn obviously there's corruption at all levels, But the Department of Education for years, even though it was put in, I believe, by either Nixon or JFK, but it was initially, you know, well-intentioned. But all you see, like a lot of these agencies, is bloated bureaucracy of the money's going to come to them first. They're going to determine the legislation, the laws that your students in your neighborhoods that they have no connection, no context to, are supposed to abide by. And lo and behold, the money goes to them, and then it gets siphoned over to the states. So I think from a big picture standpoint of, okay, there's no longer this Department of Education that has to be like FEMA, this federal hoop where people can go in and get their little cut. It takes it back to the states, power back to the states, you know? So I'm all for that. And people that, once again, the left, these libtards running around talking about, oh my God, they're going to chain the schools. The students are no longer going to be able to read. Your son couldn't read anyway. Like, don't you see what the problem has been and the systemic corruption behind it? So I love how the left, once again, they're just all Trump fear mongering. Oh, he wants to take away our books and our kids ain't gonna be able to have an education. And they're doing all that. You know, they miss me with all that. But I go ahead and get off my rant. Whoever wants to go, Pastor Green.
Well, I think it's a good thing what Trump is doing. I believe it was Jimmy Carter in 1970.
Yeah, Jimmy. Yeah, Jimmy.
That created the Department of Education. But it is just another slush fund that just needs to go away. I mean, when you look at the Maryland school system, the kids cannot read at grade level. And people are fine with that because the powers that be, they're just getting millions of dollars just to spread amongst themselves. And the children are just victims of the education system. I mean, when you think, for example, to show you how they don't care about kids, in Oregon, they passed a law, they passed a measure 2 years ago where a child doesn't even have to be at grade proficiency. They don't even have to be scholastic standards. They could just graduate whether they could read or write, whether or not they could read or write or do arithmetic. They just passing them on through. So now, and you look at what they're doing now. It's come to the point now where, listen, if the kids are not learning, then what's the point? These schools have become indoctrination centers rather than learning centers. And that needs to stop. Because we're putting kids out here that are not literate. They're not functioning to perform any laborious task or any high-tech industry. I mean, you got kids in China studying quantum physics, and all our children are prepared to do is learn how to use a condom at 8 years old. This is crazy. And yes, the rights need to be given back to the states because the federal government has failed to educate our children properly, and it needs to go.
Amen, Pastor Green. I just want to kind of hit on real quick because, Spiritual Brother, I know you're going to be cooking on this, but it's just kind of like the same thing with USAID that we've seen, same thing with all the other departments that their Doge is going through and doing what they got to do to cut the fat. But the mentality, and I hate to kind of pick on black folks on this, but it's just liberal Democrats, but that are working out in the federal workers. I know, Conspiracy Brother, you have a certain special disdain for the federal workers out in DC. I get it. But it's this mentality of people, these federal workers, anybody that kind of either works with the government or is dependent on these government grants, even people that just live off of the government grants, they have this mindset of being a glorified welfare queen. I'm sorry, but if over 50, 60, 80% plus of your income is dependent on these government grants, you are in some aspects a glorified government welfare queen. And it's one thing where you use these grants to get a hand up, to get your business started, to get something going in the neighborhood, and to build upon yourself to where you can start businesses and start things and have your own thing going. That's different from, I want this government, I want Biden to do everything they can to get this government as big and bloated as possible, to get all these contracts, to get everything coming in. And once again, you're a government contract / grant welfare queen, where you look past all the corruption, you look past everything U.S. aid, all the foolishness they're sending overseas for Sesame Street plays and transgender comics and all this other stuff. You miss all that, because as long as you eating, as long as your cousins and sisters, they got their little federal job, as long as you get your little grant, and it's sick. It's a very sick mind. It's the same mindset of people that only want to work in corporate, and they want to, and there's nothing wrong with just working in corporate, having a day job, obviously, but it's the fact that you don't aspire toward anything more, as far as like at least being like, okay, I need this ship. I need this ship to keep riding. I need this gravy train to keep moving, despite all the other corruption, because I'm getting mine. These people had no problem with the federal, with all the healthcare workers losing their jobs over the jab, the thousands and millions of Black people that became second-class citizens throughout 21 and 22 with the vax. They had no problem with everything happening to all the other people, because they think they have this mindset of, well, I'm a federal worker. I have a right. I have a constitutional right to never get fired from the government, because you think it's a lifelong gravy ticket. So that's that mindset we're dealing with. They look past the corruption. They look past all the fraud and all the hurt that the Biden administration, the Democrats have been causing, legal migrants and all that. Just because they don't want to get in the way of their meal ticket. But conspiracy, brother, you go right ahead. I just had to get that off my chest, because we got a lot of glorified government grant federal workers who have a glorified welfare queen mindset. But go right ahead, conspiracy, brother. I just had to get that off my chest.
Yeah. So there's actually, I don't know if I ever talked about him on the show before, but there's a channel named Tim Black TV.
Oh yeah, Tim Black.
And he had a doctor on. This might have been like 2 weeks ago, named Musa Abdullah. He's from Detroit, Black doctor, doctorate in education. And he talks about, they really go into a lot of detail about the Department of Education. And the doctor says something like, you don't hear any educators talking about that. No educators are complaining. He said all the people that are complaining are like administrators and above. And he said that's why you hear like, he said all this stuff is, he basically was saying this is great. He's Black, he's from Detroit, grew up in Detroit. And I think it's a really good episode in general to watch, but he explains some of the reasons why our education system has really just gotten so bad. And it really is a situation that, I mean, we talked about it the last topic, right? When we're talking about the military industrial complex. We live in a country that has commodified every aspect of our life. And so in doing that, what happens is the objective is to make money. The objective in school now is not to educate children. It's to make money. So they sell tests, they sell educational materials, they sell teacher, what do they call them?
It's all lectures. It's all a
yeah. It's so like Pastor Green was saying, where you, or might have been you, conservative brother, that was talking about how you concerned with like gender stuff and all this stuff, and you don't know what 2 + 2 is, right? All over the country, not just China, but all over the world. Sorry, not country. They're doing things, right? When I was in high school, there were 2 Chinese kids in my physics class, my senior year, and the one guy said they mastered calculus in the 8th grade. You can't even take calculus in the 8th grade in American schools. I mean, you have to be like advanced, but not like the 8th grade in American middle schools. You have to probably still go somewhere. You can't take it in the school. You may have a teacher who can't do calculus, right? And so, I mean, but what is the incentive? The incentive is not to make, and this is how it backfires. When you want a populace who is not smart enough to be able to resist and rebel against you, a la 1776, a la the 1960 Civil Rights Movement, where you had people, and you look at the 70s with the Black Panthers and the 60s and stuff with the hippies, where you had people who knew their rights, who understood how to read the Constitution and could interpret the words that they were reading and respond accordingly. You have people who are brain dead. And, you know, like I said, people are too stupid to know they're fed up. And I say that it's not of their own choosing. And so the downside of that is you're susceptible to all these other countries around the world who are still teaching their people how to do things and teaching their people how to think. Now, they may be oppressive in some other way, but it's like in America, we live in a world, you know, where like I'm reminded of like an animal in a cage, right? It around the world may be compared to, you know, like, for example, let's say China, Russia, some of these countries like that, North Korea, they may be compared to animals in a cage, right? And so they have so far they can go, and they understand that's where they can go, but they have full access to whatever they have within the confines of their environment. Where for us, you can go as far as you want to, but you don't know how far that is, so you only go to the front porch, and then you go back inside. You know what I'm saying? And so you're still limited, right? Like Chris Rock had this joke in his, I believe it was Bigger and Blacker, his comedy special, Bigger and Blacker. He said, for white people, the sky's the limit. And for black people, the limit's the sky. That was the joke. That was the punchline. But I would say that, you know, that's trickled down. In order to consolidate power, the country has had to really consolidate, to expand the miseducation to more people, right? And so this is what has happened. So with the Department of Education, it's not a guarantee that you'll see an increase in education, but you look at No Child Left Behind and the increase in standardized testing as a measure of proficiency, right? Those are products of the Department of Education because everybody wants metrics and benchmarks. They don't really want you to learn. They just want to know that you've learned by looking at these tests. So it's not a matter of, do you know that 2 + 2 = 4? It's, do you understand how to get to that answer in the sufficient way, right? And so by allowing each state to be responsible, you should be saving money in those states, and you should be able to ensure that the education is the responsibility of each and every state in the country. Now you know who to blame, right? The Common Core stuff, which is a ridiculous way to do learning. And there was another, might have been Jimmy Dore, he talked about this, where it's like with the, maybe I'll try to find these and we can put links in the description. But like they took testing. It might not have been, it might have been, it's called More Perfect Union, where they talked about how, like in the 50s and stuff, they did all these different educational tools. And as they increased in the United States, like a lot of people from New Zealand do a lot of weird stuff medically. That Dr. Money, who does all of that transgender stuff, he was from New Zealand. This person I'm talking about with the education stuff was from New Zealand or Australia.
Yeah, that Dr. Money guy, he was the godfather of this whole transgenderism. He was a prolific child molester. What he did to those kids, twins,
yes, a lot of them.
Yep.
There was a doctor in at the University of Indiana too. They actually have a statue of him there at their medical school. If I'm not mistaken, it's the medical school. But yes, and so they've made money creating these programs that have been shown time and time again not to work. It was with sight, it was with reading. So sorry, I'll find it, but it was specifically with reading. They this educator from New Zealand created the idea of sight words, and so they moved kids away from from phonics reading, from teaching to read with phonics to sight words, and sight words destroyed kids because it essentially taught you to guess. You were supposed to learn to read by looking at the length of a word and the size of a word, and then guess what it was. But it didn't teach you to understand what the letters meant together and stuff. It was really wild. But that's a microcosm of how our education system works in this country now, because it came to this country and it took off. But because the Department of Education, all these government agencies need to justify their jobs to increase their budgets year after year. They pay for stuff they don't need. They spend money on things they don't need. And nobody's ever looking into it because it's not their money. It's government money. I'm telling you, when I lived in D.C., the interactions that I had with government workers it would make anybody happy about Doge. Fire them all. I'll stop there.
Excellent conspiracy, brother. All right. Appreciate that context. Definitely firing on all cylinders. More to come. Well deserved as far as this action. Let's hope it holds up. But of course, the left's bringing it out, and we'll see how it goes through Congress in the coming months. All right. Next topic, y'all. We're going to dive right into this. Definitely a hot topic. I have more of a nuanced view that I'm sure maybe Conspiracy Brother and Pastor Green you may not fully agree with. But we got to talk about Mahmoud Khalil. He was apparently a student on Columbia University campus. He was one of the big organizers for the pro-Palestine movement. He is a green card holder. He came over here a few years ago from, I think, Lebanon. His wife, right over there, Noor Abdallah, is an American citizen. I think she's like 7 or 8 months pregnant. And basically, what had happened is that once again, Trump administration pulled up on him, detained him, and basically he's set for deportation. Candace Owens, once again, I'll give Candace all the praise I can. She pissed both sides off. She definitely had a few nuanced words for what was going on. For one, I don't agree with half of, nearly all the pro-Palestiners. I do believe, once again, that the Gaza genocide is real. I'm not for that. I'm against the Zionist side of Israel, and I'm able to criticize Netanyahu and the Israel government for what they've done. That's not a condemnation or anti-Semitic of all Jews or Jewish people. We definitely got to acknowledge that. However, Mahmoud Khalil, if he was part of the group that was pushing Jewish students around as far as physical, if he was, in the dorm halls, throwing the chairs, blockading the dorm halls, causing chaos, like not letting people go where they're supposed to go. There's a lot of manipulative tactics about the protests where they do more than just sit there and do free speech. So once again, he's pro-Hamas. I'm not, he's pro-Palestine, but of course, then they're talking about, Karen Levitt over at the White House press secretary said he was like basically passing out pro-Hamas literature. And they were like, yeah, well, he said all this stuff and he said this and that. But at the end of the day, he wasn't charged for a crime. Now, if he was like a BLM protester, if he ended up firebombing a building, if he was punching people, if he was doing any of that stuff, I'm all for it. Send them back or put them in jail. But as of now, there isn't a specific crime that he has been charged with. Marco Rubio, Mike Johnson, when they're getting interviewed, they're kind of just saying, well, he's just pro-Hamas and he's terrorist and all that. And what he's talking about, I get it. I'm not pro-Hamas. I'm not for, once again, what the extreme left is doing. I call them out just like BLM. But at the same time, out of all the pro-Palestine protesters and agitators, what we call the tourists that come over here, that get paid by these NGOs to rile up and cause chaos on campus, I'm wondering, why didn't you pick any of them up? There's plenty of cameras out there where you could have actually picked up one of the people who actually did, once again, physical assaults, that did prevent Jewish students from walking where they have the right to walk or going to their dorms. I feel like this is really, it really blew up in Trump's administration's face, because they picked a guy out of all these agitators, all these far left lunatics that they could have charged a crime for, and they picked the guy that actually, even Candace Owens went through this and said, yeah, he actually didn't physically do anything, and they're not charging him for a crime. I get it. I don't agree with everything he probably agrees with. He probably want to throw me in jail for not taking the vax, for not getting the jab, and all these other beliefs. But at the end of the day, they picked somebody who technically didn't. There's no crime he was brought up on. And I think it's really going to blow up in Trump's face. And it already is. So once again, I'll say that to say, I know I'm getting long-winded. Pastor Green, you want to go next, and then Conspiracy Brother will get your thoughts. Once again, I don't see there isn't the exact crime that they're pulling him up that he's being charged for. This is technically political. But once again, the pro-Palestine folks who were all for the censorship of Trump conservatives and J6 political prisoners, and they're all for the jailing of letting pro-activists rot in jail and Christians and all that. They would not fight for those same free speech rights for J6 prisoners, pro-life activists, or Christians. That is just a pro-speech. It's just a free speech they like. All right, so I still want to call them out on that, you know. But in this specific situation, Mahmoud Khalil, maybe they just picked the wrong guy by accident. He technically, whether through video footage, whether through going back on the timeline, they won't pull up a crime he's actually charged for, and there's no evidence of him actually doing anything outside of just protesting on campus. You know, if I don't agree with you fully, you can still protest. And Candace Owens covered this clearly. So once again, I'm not for or probably agree with anything else Mahmoud Khalil has done, and I'm not super pro Hamas. You know, I'm for, like, you know, to get rid of the genociding of the Palestinians, but I'm not for this sort of political witch hunt that kind of blew up in their face. You know, so that's my nuanced take. Pastor Green, if you want to go first, like I said, I know there's a lot of nuance, but that's where I'm at right now. But feel free.
Yes. Well, you know, in regards to Khalil Mahmoud, I think essentially what a lot of people are missing that support him is that this man is not a citizen of the United States. He's basically a guest in this country. And see, this is the thing that we have to look at, is that we're allowing people to come from these Islamic countries and cause chaos. I consider this man to be a threat to national security, because what is he doing over here? He's committing upheavals. Okay, yeah, he may not have thrown a rock, but he incited other people to do it. Because you got to remember, these pro-Palestine, these Hamas protesters, they've been causing disruptions all over the country for the last 2 years. And they're not even citizens, most of them. Especially these college students, they're here on visas. So you're here as a guest of the United States. And for them to come over here and to do what they're doing, I just find it outrageous. And I think they all need to have their visas revoked. And I think they need to be deported. You know, because I really take it personal, being that I'm retired law enforcement out in New York City. And I always remember 9/11. And we allow other non-citizens from Saudi Arabia to cause the atrocities that they caused. And when you think about it, what we're having now is a Islamic problem. I'm just going to go there, because we are giving people from Middle Eastern countries too much say and too much leeway. Free speech is for American citizens. If you are here on a visa, if you're a non-citizen, you have no rights. the Constitution does not apply to you. You're not a United States citizen. So in other words, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. But for people to come to this country and create upheaval, it should not be tolerated. These people need to be sent back and not allowed in this country again. And I think what Trump is doing is he's setting the right message, because all these colleges that have permitted this nonsense, as in the case of Columbia University, now they just lost $400 million in federal funds. So Trump, I really believe, is taking the necessary actions. If you're not a citizen of the country, you have no right to disrupt the activities of this country. And I yield.
All right, Pastor Green. I know, conspiracy brother. I just want to kind of just mention for context. I feel you, Pastor Green, because once again, I'm not for most of this pro-Hamas foolishness going on. Obviously, people have the right to protest. Obviously, people like Mahmoud Khalil are at disadvantage because, yes, once again, Secretary of State Mark Rubio can revoke your green card. They have the right to do that. Just how he has the right to, he has a right to an extent, obviously, for freedom of speech. Marco Rubio then has the right to revoke him. Now, I don't agree with that because, once again, what was Biden doing to any conservatives that were speaking out against his regime? So I think it is a slippery slope. I think they could have picked, there were so many other pro-Hamas left-wing activists that were actually caught on camera doing stuff they could have put in jail. I just feel like with this case, I agree with that. We don't need more anti-American, all that stuff, especially coming from people who aren't from here. I don't agree with his stance, but I think it is going to misfire because technically he isn't getting charged for a crime. I don't agree with most of his speech, but I think this is going to kind of blow up in the Trump administration because they could have picked a lot of other people with a crime who are doing stuff on those campuses that I don't agree with. So, conspiracy brother, you go ahead. You want to give your thoughts? You know, Pastor Green brought up some good points though, on like, you know, but a slippery slope, you know.
Yeah, what I heard about the guy is that he worked for the embassy, and there was some shady stuff with him dealing with like the intelligence services in the UK. So I didn't know how much of this was legitimate and how much of this might have been some kind of like a psyop thing, because you never can tell with these people, even with the BLM protests. When you look at the January 6th, a lot of the people who were agitating in the crowds were, agent provocateurs. That's why every time they had a congressional hearing about it, and somebody would ask the FBI director, Christopher Wray, Ted Cruz asked, I think, I can't remember everybody who was asking, but I know Ted Cruz, were they the FBI agents? We can't say. Can't. So that you can't say no, that means yes. So you had, federal law enforcement who were setting up American citizens who were otherwise peacefully protesting. Even in the case of BLM, right? Let's say nobody got arrested in BLM and it was just they just let people burn stuff down. What you still do is you create a social disunity. Because let's say there was some social camaraderie between groups where people could say, we sympathize with this action that you're protesting for, and that you're peaceful and it's quiet, everything's good. But then you begin to protest violently, and goodwill goes out the window. Same with January 6th, right? Because even on that same hand, you hear people saying, "Well, everybody talked about the January 6th people. I mean, the BLM people, and complaining about them burning stuff down, but the people at January 6th were going into Congress and they were smashing windows and blah blah blah." And so it becomes just a tool for social disunity. The elites, the establishment, they get to maintain power. But I think is interesting. Ben Shapiro, I sent you that from Anomaly, conservative brother, the video. I don't know if you got to watch it, but Ben Shapiro has really been trying to do damage control with the JFK files. I know we're not talking about that, but he's trying to do damage control because the CIA requested that Israel be redacted. That's the only thing that they requested be redacted in the CIA, in the JFK files. Any mention of Israel, which automatically makes people wonder why would Israel be mentioned at all during the assassination of JFK. If he was assassinated in '64, Israel had only been a country or their country of 48. It was like 16 years at that point. So anyway, well, long story short, you look at Ben Shapiro and the way that he behaves, right? His whole career has basically been debating college students and not very bright college students, not very logically consistent college students, maybe not even mentally fit college students for their personal reasons. That's where he made a name for himself. And facts don't care about your feelings. That's what his favorite saying is.
Right.
But we can see when the shoe is on the other foot, and it's an area of concern for him that he wants all the protection in the world. And so my biggest issue with this, I agree to some degree with Pastor Green that if you are a non-citizen, you should be, as best you can, a non-issue. Like they even talk about when they have the illegal immigrants coming here and migrant crime is like such and such the lowest number and whatever. Yeah. But like I've been out of the country. We in Michigan, right by Canada, but I've been to Japan, I've been to Thailand, I've been and I've never thought about Huh?
I'm sorry, I just had to be like, that's a t-shirt, bro. You be dropping some gems. I don't know. I just gotta rewind that back. You say if you're a non-citizen, you should be a non-issue. Keep your head down.
Maybe that should be a shirt. Maybe we got to start.
That might be our first t-shirt. I just had to
start slinging
flowers, bro. Non-citizen should be a non-issue. But
I buy it. I wear it.
Yeah, I got
it. But when you travel out the country, right, you try your best to not be a problem. I've never gone out of the country, been to Europe, and said, you know what, man, give me a medal. I didn't steal. Give me a medal. I didn't beat nobody over the head. I didn't, you know what I'm saying? I didn't murder anybody, because that's not what you do. I'm a visitor. I'm a guest in your country. Even if I'll say, I'm not leaving. I'm staying. My objective is to still try to blend in as best I can to how you guys do things. So I've never considered committing a crime, nor should I be rewarded or held in some high regard or esteem because I haven't. Right? That's just not what you should be doing. And so in that same way, I agree. You should not be fomenting unrest, social unrest, if you are a non-citizen. But like I said, we don't offer these kinds of protections for any other country, any other group, right? It's as many trans people in the world as it is Israelis or Jews, right? 1%. By the numbers, basically 1% of the global population. But what makes them so special that you can't be? Because a lot of this boils down to, like even you prefaced it, conservative brother, this is not anti-Semitism because I because you were calling out the genocide of Palestinians or whatever. You had to make this preamble, right, to what you were saying because it will be misconstrued. If it got into the wrong hands, it would be misconstrued. Black people don't have that kind of protection. Gay people don't have that kind of protection. No other minority group has that kind of protection. And why not? What has gone on with this group of people that they have this level of protection in such a way that nobody else does? right? Ben Shapiro is Israel first over being American first. And we're supposed to be okay with that. You want to be a champion of the right, of the conservative movement, of the American first movement. And your priority, and he said it, if not verbatim what I'm saying, at least in so many words, that if he had to choose between America and Israel's best interest, he's picking Israel first. Yet you don't live there. You have no significant interest there besides whatever, familial, whatever, historic, if, whatever. But you live here. Your family lives here. Your companies are here. And so this is the kind of thing, like you talked about, the double standard. Yes, it is a slippery slope. And it is time that somebody says that they're going to stand in the truth, right, and say, hey, if he don't have a crime on him, we can't put a crime on him and kick him out of here. There are enough people who really broke laws that we can actually throw the book at. We don't have to fabricate some type of charges on this man to get him out of here, right? If he did anything wrong that justifies his green card being revoked, let us know. And this is a non-issue. But unless we're willing to accept this type of behavior, because this is really what happens, then you come up with all these protected groups. And like I've said on many, many times on other podcasts, when you look at the civil rights movement, Black people were not marching and getting beat up and getting dog sicked on and getting beat down with water hoses for special treatment. That wasn't what people were doing. We were doing all that, our ancestors or our family, however you want to look at it, we're doing that to be treated equally, right? Any of the affirmative action programs that were created that were, nominally supposed to improve the condition of Black people were done because there was a recognition that we had been locked out of certain situations. And so without deliberate, direct action, we would never be able to compete as a group, not individually, but as a group. But nobody was saying, hey, a condition of desegregation, you got to let me sleep with your wife. You got to let me lay in the bed at your house. I got to be able to eat your food first. You got to let me in your house and I got to be able to sit in your chair. That wasn't it. You see what I'm saying? I got to be able to, like these are things nobody said, hey, you can't make jokes about Black people. You can't criticize us. That was never a condition of it. We just wanted to be treated like tax-paying citizens that we were. And so, like I said, to see this special treatment, it's interesting to me because it's a saying Jimmy Dore says, I don't know if he created it, but he says, whoever you can't criticize is who controls you. And the one thing our government does not disagree on is funding Israel. That's the one thing. The only guy in Congress that I know of who does not have an AIPAC handler is Thomas Massey. Yep. And Trump's trying to get him out of office. He's the only one that don't have one. And Trump is trying to get him out of office. So, I mean, I have often committed the crime of noticing things. I think that could almost be the sub headline of this channel. Uncomfy Truths. Here we commit the crime of noticing things.
Yep.
And so,
the crime of noticing. Thought crime.
So that's
all right. And I will say this once again. I asked the people out there, the Mahmoud Khalil supporters and once again the pro-Palestine, pro-Gaza folks, I'm with you on the side of the Gaza genocide and your right to promote that free speech. And once again, I side with both of these gentlemen here, where once again you got these non-citizens coming over here that should be non-issues, and they're riling up all this anti-American propaganda. At the same time, they got the free speech right to do that. But let me ask you this, you pro-Palestiners out there. If it's a group of pro-life activists on campus who are blockading dorm rooms, who are doing blockading students from getting to their dorms and getting across campus, are you going to have that same energy, that same Claudine Gay is that free? Is that free speech, or is that warranted? She's like, there's context. Would you have context for their free speech if you had MAGA J6, these J6 political prisoners, if they were on campus blockading the dorm halls, if they were keying Teslas and firing and shooting up Pfizer and Moderna vaccine companies, and coming after MSNBC or any Bill Gates funded companies, would you have that same energy for their free speech? Probably not. So once again, I've said this once and I said this all again. I agree with you guys on one little thing, but if the tables would turn, would you guys be once again cheering for us to get put in unvaccinated camps, for us to get censored as conservatives, for us to people getting thrown into jail for 2-3 years just for walking in and outside of a Capitol building, while y'all had a riot summer 2020, y'all did all this mess, and y'all get bailed out through the Minneapolis Fund. So I say, like, where's your energy for free speech outside of just Palestine? You'll see really quickly is that a lot of these folks, these Mahmoud Khalid reporters, they are all about free speech when it only comes to them. In roles of reverse, they'll throw us all into the gulags. So I have to push back a bit. Like, once again, conspiracy brother, that was great topic. But I would just say, have that same energy for all free speech versus just the free speech that they like, that Mahmoud is in charge of. Because once again, I said it once and I said it again, their selective outrage always exposes their hypocrisy. So I'm not for, once again, this Mahmoud guy, he technically didn't commit a crime. I don't like his speech, but I don't think he needs to get deported for it. I don't like these people coming over here and riling all this stuff up, but he technically didn't commit a crime. But I'm not going to sit here and shed a tear if he does get deported. Because guess what? If the roles were reversed, would you be protecting our free speech that you don't like? Probably not. So that's my nuanced take. But anybody else wants to finish up,
I want to add one thing. Yeah. I really want to add this stuff. Yeah. And I'm starting to see this, and I'm very apprehensive about it. Yeah. The United States has given too much leeway to Islamic extremists.
I agree on that too.
And to Islamic culture. Yeah. And if we're not careful, we're going to see a rise in domestic and terrorism in this country.
I mean, we already are with the Tesla folks.
The Democrats have become jihadists. Oh man! But when you look at this, is a culture war where you have Islamic extremists. Because I don't agree with this whole thing of radical Islam. Islam is dangerous. Okay, they just can't do what they do in other areas in this country. Because who are the people that's cutting off heads of Christians and people that don't conform to Islam? You look at the 70 people in Africa who had their heads cut off because they're Christian. You look at what's happening in Syria. And the thing with Islamic extremists, they tell you what their intentions are. And yet, because we're so PC in this country, we just allow them to establish strongholds where they're going to do it. I saw 2 weeks ago, a Muslim police sergeant speaking in police headquarters, and she had the head covering on, and she's encouraging other people who are Muslim in the police department, female, wear the head coverings. That should not be. You see, these people, not only do they come over here to really try to start trouble and establish Sharia law, but they will not assimilate. So if you're not going to assimilate, you shouldn't be here. And we need to call right, and wrong. if we allow Islam to keep growing and influencing this country, we're going to have some serious problems.
Can't disagree with that. Yeah. All right, conspiracy brother. Anything else before we wrap up here? I know we could dive on this a little bit, but yeah, a lot of.
Well, see, what I think is interesting when you took kind of what Pastor Green just said. So you look at Syria, right? Their government is chopping the head off Christians. Our government put their government in power. The guy who's in power was an Al Qaeda member, and so this is the thing. I've talked about this before, but Henry Kissinger famously said, "America has no permanent friends and no permanent enemies, only permanent interests." So, America, even Saudi Arabia, you talked earlier about 9/11, right? Saudi Arabia is an ally of the United States. And so we allow this type of mentality to spread around the globe. And we do it. It's like the U.S. thinks it is capable. Even you look at Osama bin Laden, right? We used Osama bin Laden in the 80s to fight off the Soviets in Afghanistan as the Mujahideen. And so, like, the United States feels like they can use, and this is, again, I'm talking about neoconservative foreign policy, which I've talked about on the show continually, makes us less safe as American citizens because it promotes these types of reckless and dangerous, even the stuff that's going on in South America, where these gangs have popped up and popped up, have been used to undermine the governments in those countries that the United States disagrees with. And so they come up here and they wreak havoc in our country because we're right there. And so the interesting thing I always look at, because I like to look at a lot, especially since there are so many cases that go to federal court, I look at the different judges. And so usually when it's a conservative judge, it's just a white man. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but I'm just saying that's what it is. Right. And because federal judges are lifetime appointments, usually they're Bush appointments. If you have some Trump appointments, you may have some women, you may have some other people, not just white men, but by and large, if it's a white man, it's a Trump appointment. I mean, it's a conservative, it's a Republican. Not necessarily, though, because a couple of them have been Clinton appointments, even though Clinton was kind of a conservative Democrat. But, that's not need to get into the weeds. The more important thing is to look at a lot of the Biden and Obama appointees are, first generation American, even. That Amir Ali, the judge who wanted to stop the Trump administration from distributing the $2 billion in U.S. aid monies. Is from Canada, but I think he's like Middle Eastern heritage, but he's Canadian. He's Canadian American. He's born in Canada. He's a federal U.S. judge. The judge just recently blocked the Trump administration or Doge initiative. I forget what it was about specifically, but his last name was Huang. He's Chinese or something. And you see a lot of that. They're not Black American. And so this is how the Democratic Party has tried to shift the dynamic in this country, right? Through immigration, through this idea of a melting pot. It's a lie. It's a falsity. In the 60s and beyond, the only really two people in this country was Black people and white people. And after the 60s, hijacking the civil rights movement, the Democratic Party tried to create this falsehood of America as a melting pot. And I think even some of the conservatives latched onto it as a way to undermine Black people's legitimate concerns about equality. We talked about, right? Equality, legitimate equality, and not, favoritism and handouts. And now what is happening is you've had these people here and they have allegiances to other countries, right? They have allegiances to their home country, or they have sensibilities that are not American, because no matter what you want to think, Black Americans are American. You know, our perspective is American. We don't have another place that we draw from to consider the sensibility or a way of thinking or a moral perspective. We are American. We American as apple pie, baseball, and Chevys, right? Where if I was a Haitian immigrant, I might consider the history of Haiti or some aspect of Haitian folk history as it pertains to my decision making. Or if I was African, or if I was from the Bahamas, you see what I'm saying? Or if I was Mexican, or if I was Indian, or if I was Chinese, right? I may still be raised with the sensitivities, the cultural sensitivities, the cultural proclivity of those countries. Remember, Dr. Leanna Wen on CNN was talking about, you know, we need to take people's passports. If they don't want to get vaccinated, they need to be locked up. Well, she's Chinese. And why is that significant? Because they live in an authoritarian country, right? So you don't have the option to opt out of getting vaccinated in China. You get it or you go to jail, right? They are surveilling you publicly everywhere you go. You have no option to opt out. Political prisoners and dissent is not allowed. I mean, political prisoners are a thing. Dissent is not allowed. And so she comes to this country bringing those sensitivities, those cultural norms, those cultural values with her. Prince Harry came to, he said, you know, I don't understand how you could just say anything you want in this country. Well, it's because we got the First Amendment, but you don't have that because you don't even have a written constitution in the UK, right? So you don't have that concept. As a matter of fact, your great whoever is the very reason we got the First Amendment. Because we had to lump him and y'all up a little bit for us to get what we got. The First Amendment and the Second. And we use the Second to make sure we keep the First. Right? But that's the thing. These people come to this country, and because they are not thoroughly raised with an understanding of what it means to be an American, right? And it's hard for people because our culture is so pervasive around the world. Our movies, our music, our icons, how we dress, how we talk, what we eat. That American culture can almost seem like it doesn't exist because everybody just does what we do. But being American is a way of thinking too, right? It's a way that you look at the world. It's a me first mentality, and not a me and no one else, but it's a me first. It's I got to look out for me and mine. And that means I got to keep you in check, because if I don't keep you in check, you might try to take mine from me. And you have so many people in this country who aren't from this country, who don't have ties to this country, long, deep roots, like what I'm talking about, we have. And so you undermine the system now. You try to play catch up like Pastor Green is saying. You have people here who don't really have the necessary connections to this place, and they're doing a lot of wild things. And legally you can't do nothing because the Constitution says you don't have any religious whatever. And I'm not even arguing that you should. I'm not. I look at that as an Achilles heel to trying to undermine your own citizens instead of trying to make everybody equal. You tried to undermine us instead of just making us all equal. And now you having your chickens come home to roost because you created a problem that you don't really have a solution for unless you do some stuff that really is unconstitutional and flies in the face of everything you claim to stand for. And so I don't know how you get out of this, right? I don't know how you navigate this cleanly and sufficiently because there's no cookie cutter way at all. But I mean, it's a pickle for sure. It's a pickle. That's it for me.
All right. You heard it here first. Once again, guys, you guys are watching Uncomfy Truths. We broadcast weekends bi-weekly. Follow us on YouTube, Rumble, and also Odyssey. We're going to keep saying what needs to be said. Our motto is because somebody has to say it. So moving on, our next topic officially that we're gonna pop off right now is Trump's joint address to Congress. Trump's joint address to Congress. This is something that's usually done every 4 years of the next, newest president. So it's not a State of the Union officially, but it has those State of Union vibes. This took place just a few weeks ago. A lot of interesting moments. For one, you had Rep. Al Green, aka Big Perm, call him Big Perm, shouting, throwing up his cane like, "Oh man, you don't have a mandate. You don't have a mandate." You got Democrats in one row not clapping, not standing. They got their little church fans protest, little Elon Musk hate church fans going, which they have the right. They have the right for free speech. That's a great thing about free speech. We're not a pro censorship show. We're all about the right, the freedom of expression, the freedom of speech, even if I disagree or can't stand it. And I think this was an excellent display of the Democrats further hitting that nail in the coffin of showing them who they really are. Trump even said it himself. Who, once again, I say this all the time. I still have a lot of things I don't agree with Trump with his ties to. I think he's still making money off the Pfizer vaccine and just some things that his continued support of Israel. Also, obviously the Mahmoud thing. A lot of things I've always had trouble with Trump. But I do like the fact that he is a master at the game of exposing Dems for being just as corrupt, if not obviously more corrupt than Trump and the Republicans could ever be. You had literally a 13-year-old kid who went through cancer, 10 or 12 cancer treatments, who got invited to be an honorary Secret Service officer. They couldn't clap for that. You had the family of Laken Riley, who was a woman, a Georgia college student killed by a illegal migrant, raped and killed. Well, YouTube probably gonna strike us for that, but I'm just stating a fact. And then also another 12-year-old girl, I believe, was sexually assaulted and killed. He named this like a state park after her. So there are a lot of moments where, unfortunately, Democrats could have at least gotten a couple scraps. Like, show that you at least have a pulse or some sort of soul. And what do? They sit back, arms folded, don't clap, don't cheer. The guy that got accepted in the West Point, the cancer boy, the families of the women killed. You got these Democrat women wearing pink, while just a few hours before they voted against men being excluded from women's sports. So it was just a very full circle moment of showing them exactly who they are. And I've said it over and over again. It might even become a tagline. The left's selective outrage always exposes their hypocrisy. So those are just my general thoughts. Just to get a temperature read, I'd like to go around the horn. Pastor Green, what were your thoughts on Trump's pretty impressive joint address? And I think he made it a political show. It's always political theater, but I think he masterfully just exposed the Democrats more than ever.
Well, he truly did. And I call them, instead of the Democrats, I call them the jihadocrats, because the domestic terrorism that they're backing and they're even committing, it's incredible. But at that State of the Union address, we see these Democrats for who they really are.
Oh, Rep. Green, Hitler. Look, he's Hitler. Rep. Green's Hitler.
Yeah, Trump is Hitler. But look look what they're doing.
Oh,
look what they're doing. The minute you don't agree with them, they resort to terrorism. And this is really something that has to be addressed. And I really think when you look at people like Jasmine Crockett and the other Democrats, this should open up the eyes of Black people. Because the ratchetness that's on the left, it's embarrassing.
It is.
It's embarrassing. Mm. Donald Trump and the Republicans, they're about business. They're about getting this country back in order. And what's the Democrats' response? They making cartoon video, acting like cartoon characters. You know, Jasmine Crockett and them other two officials, they dancing in the hall. Really? Is this about business? And see, this is the buffoonery of the Democrats. And this is how they've been playing black people for the last 60 years. Rather than being about business, the Democrats continue to bamboozle black people. Whether it's a fish fry, a cookout, whatever. Everything has to be about entertainment, or the other extreme is violence. And I'm really serious about that. The Democrats are either trying to pull the wool over people's eyes by entertaining them, or they just go straight out and get violent. And then when have you ever seen someone had to be, in Al Green's case, had to be escorted out of the hall? I mean, that's a horrible first for a black man. But this is the Democratic Party. And this is why black people need to open their eyes and wake up. Because the Democrat Party serves, I'm going to say it, they serve no useful purpose in America. They fighting Doge because, why are they fighting Doge? Because we're going to find out who been getting the kickbacks. And the Democrats don't want that revealed. So the Democrats lost for a reason. And we see by their behavior, whether it's at the State of the Union address or how they're making people their useful pawns and committing domestic terrorism, we got to see the Democrats for who they are. And I really believe in 2 years, the way the Democrat Party is going, it's going to be a reproach to even say that you are a Democrat or you ever were one. That's how bad the Democrats are, and that's where they're headed. And I yield.
Here. Great words, Pastor Green. I think you couldn't have summed it up any better. Democrats are they're always just projection. Everything they are, everything they claim, Trump Republicans are for the most part, they're, if not as guilty or more guilty, and people are just tired of it. So many eyes have been open. I've heard of so many. There's been a lot of TikToks going viral lately, just these former liberals. Like, oh my God, after I saw this join the Congress, I'll never vote Democrat again. Rightly so. And as Conspiracy Brother so eloquently put, I hope the party goes the way of the Whigs, the way of the dinosaurs, the dodo bird. Is long overdue. Now, once again, I say this, that doesn't mean Trump and Trump's, his last term anyway. But that doesn't mean Republicans. I took this lifelong blood oath to Republicans now. I spoke about it on the show. Be conservative, brother. I voted twice Democrat, Obama twice. I voted Jill Stein, Green Party 2016. I still had a little bit of TDS, wasn't sure about Trump. 2020, I came around. So I say that to say is that, once again, Republicans moving forward, you bought my vote for this term, but guess what? My vote, my loyalty is not bought. It is only rented, and the rent is due every election cycle. So I just wish black folks kind of had that same mentality. Instead of having this racial idolatry where I'm black, so I'm Democrat first. I have a Democrat mentality, and that's all my identity is Democrat first. If they just at least had hey, I'm Christian first, I'm maybe black first, but I'm not that doesn't make me a Democrat. And guess what? The Democrats have to prove every 4 years whether they deserve my vote or not. It's not just expected. It's, once again, my vote, my loyalty is only rented, and the voting rent is due every 2 to 4 years. So I just wanted to kind of get that out there. The Conspiracy Brother, your thoughts on this joint address?
Yeah, so Pastor Green brought up a lot of stuff. He always does. Jasmine Crockett went to like a $35,000 a year, like high school, elementary school.
Another plan.
Yep. So this whole, and I think her college was like $53,000 a year. I could be wrong, but she went to like St. Louis Country Day for school. So, and then she went to I forget the college. It's a private college though. Either way, she comes from, her father was a pastor. So to me, it's interesting that she uses this language. You can see videos of her. I think Tariq Nasheed or Tim Black has videos of her doing interviews, talking to people, cussing using all kind of language, and just being a general stereotype, a negative stereotype of Black people, of Black women. And I would say she should be ashamed, but clearly she doesn't have any shame. And so, you look at it, I look at it, and I'm wondering how a person like her gets comfortable enough to behave this way. How do you get to the point where you feel like it's acceptable for you to behave this way, to portray your community, since they always have to talk about community, the Black community in this way, as a sitting a public official, right? Because even me, I try not to. My father asked me not to use profane language on this podcast, and so I don't. And she's a sitting member of Congress, and she sounds like she's trying to audition for the next Dolomite movie. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Or Love and Hip Hop Atlanta.
You know what I'm saying? What's really going on? Right? This is the kind of thing that we should be upset about. Now, like you said, conservative brother, let the Democratic Party go the way of the Whigs. They can't get my vote back. I'll vote. I'll write my own name in before I vote for them again, at least at the national level. There's nothing they can do. I don't trust the organism of the Democratic Party, right? So even if they could reanimate the corpse of Martin Luther King, and I would not trust, the apparatus of the Democratic Party to actually do anything for the American people. But when you look at why they have resorted to all of these like virtue signaling and these displays, right? Why have they leaned into the culture war so hard? It's because they cannot offer the American people anything, right? They don't actually have a legitimate counter offer to the Republican Party. So they have to offer you rainbow colored Republicanism. And so the American people, the sensibilities of the average American citizen is not rainbow sensitive. And so it doesn't work. The average American citizen still feels like men are men and women are women. And in general, if I'm forced to have to confront this issue and I have to make a choice, I'm going to choose the side of how I was raised. If I meet a person and they, are transgender, and I'll speak for myself only, I'll be as respectful as I can be. Right? I'll be as respectful as I can be. However, whatever I may think internally, you can't change that. You cannot force me to believe that. You cannot force me to participate. And that's where most American people draw the line. No matter where I personally feel, I can be respectful. But at the point that you want me to actively participate one way or the other, you have no control over that. And so as much as I can, as much as the average American citizen can, they are going to resist that. But the Democratic Party does not understand. Right? So Jasmine Crockett and all of those, they'll get on here and they'll like Pastor Green said, they'll pretend they're in a fighting game or some cartoon BS or do a dance in Congress. I need you to get to legislate. That's what I need. I need you to figure out why I'm paying such high taxes if all the stuff we spending it on is out of the country. That's what I need you to figure out. How can we take some of your money? Because Jasmine Crockett said, Trump was talking about giving Americans a $5,000 check. And she said, what's $5,000 going to do? And my response to that, I think I said it on the show once, but I'll say it again. Give me $5,000 out of your check, out of your bank account, and then you tell me how much that hurts, and we'll see what $5,000 will do for me. Right? Let me have $5,000. And as easy as you can give it to me out of your bank account is how much that'll benefit me in my personal life as a regular Joe Schmo non-member of Congress. But this is what they have to do. Like you said, you can't even clap for and it's not a big deal. But you're in the public eye. You are a member of Congress. You're in the public eye. If you can't even show yourself to be able to be conciliatory and bipartisan on really boilerplate issues, right? If I say 2 + 2 and you give me a if that's the way you handle those situations, you're going to lose everybody, because now we know you can't even operate in good faith. And because Trump is doing so much, and the Republican Party under Trump is doing so much, he doesn't have a lot to prove. You don't like him anyway, so he don't have to try to win your vote. He don't have to try to win your support. But what you need to do is convince the American people that you are actually trying to do something for the benefit of all of us. And you're not doing a good job of it. I'm not convinced. No one is convinced. So, yeah, all this stuff, these antics in the background are to obfuscate away from the fact that they have nothing to offer you. They don't have a plan. They don't have an idea. They don't have an agenda. I guarantee you the worst thing for them, I bet, if they can tell you the worst thing in the world for them is that they pass gay marriage, because now they don't have that issue to run on. Well, if we put us in office, we'll get gay marriage. They thought they would have more firepower behind Roe versus Wade being overturned. But every state who supported it passed legislation to support it. And every state that didn't pass legislation to get rid of it. And what's so crazy is California is still losing people to states where they don't have abortion. So apparently that's not even an issue for them. So, I'll stop there.
All right, conspiracy brother, bringing the fire as always. Appreciate that. This is what we do at Uncomfy Truths. We lay it all on the line. All right, y'all. So moving forward, our next topic, we got a final one. Obviously, it's been very Trump administration executive order heavy, but you know how we do. We gotta discuss it. All right. So our last topic, I think the Trump administration recently mentioned that they are actually, I think there was an order coming out where they're going to, I don't know if it's already been enacted, but remove transgender service members from the military. So definitely a very spicy topic. I think what I want to do really quick is I do want to share this video from Tim Pool. So Tim Pool, I think, did a really interesting breakdown on this. And, it's not too long, but he kind of just asked some questions on basically how there was this former, gender dysphoria used to be a legit mental illness. I mean, it was in the books, it's like a mental illness back in the age of mental institutions. There's that book called the DS4 or MS4. I forgot the name of the book, but basically it used to be a diagnosed mental illness. And basically how a lot of these transgender service members, once again, they're free to live the life how they want, even if I don't agree with it. Y'all pushing it on the kids. But at the same time, a lot of them are heavily medicated and under a lot of medication, where once again, they may appear competent at their jobs, but once again, there's just a lot of weird side effects of this medication, and just really what they're doing and kind of how they've been pushing the wokeness of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull the video up. But anybody, Pastor Green, if you wanted to give your thoughts real quick on this agenda.
Thank God Donald Trump being in office and getting these lunatics out of our military.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, short and sweet. Anything else, Pastor Green?
That's it. Because think about it. Think about it. I don't think there's any other country in the world that would allow what America has been doing over the last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look at China, and they're looking to make their soldiers more tough. You even look at European countries. This stuff isn't allowed. But here in America, we live in a falsehood. If we're saying we're the greatest military power in the world, that's a lie.
Mm.
You can't put a whole bunch of Barbies in the battlefield. Girly men. It's just we're the laughingstock of the world. And I thank God that Donald Trump is in office and he's getting every freak show out of the military. And it needs to be done. And I yield.
Amen. All right, conservative brother. I'm still pulling up the video. If you want to give your initial thoughts. Once again, I don't agree with Tim Pool on everything, but he did a good deep dive on really stating the case on legitimately this, because it kind of seems like, oh my God, LGBTQ discrimination, but there's a lot more going on underneath the surface. So your thoughts, conspiracy brother, briefly, then I'll play the video real quick.
Yeah, so the interesting thing you said about it being considered a mental illness, it's still considered a mental illness. That's one of the things that they're having problems with. So they want it to be socially not considered a mental illness. However, if they don't consider it a mental illness, their insurance is not going to cover it because it's not a medical problem. And so they want it to simultaneously be considered a medical problem so that your insurance will cover it, but they don't want it to be considered a mental problem, right? So it's like a catch-22 kind of thing. So it's still considered. We got Ben Intelligent in the chat.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So yeah, so it's still a mental. That's the conundrum they're dealing with. It's still a mental disorder. That's how they want to. Oh, we want to. In the prisons they want it to be covered, and everybody they want it to be covered in schools and stuff. So it's not an elective surgery if it's a mental problem. It's a legitimate medical issue. So it's still a mental problem.
All right. And once again, shout out to Ben Intelligent. He was one of our reoccurring guests. I think he came on right around election time. So he's been a past guest on the show. Appreciate you. Shout out to California MAGA out there doing their thing. So I'm still pulling up the video because he did a really great deep dive on this. Once again, I don't agree with Tim Pool and everything, but he did a great deep dive on this topic. And yeah, like it's just sad where we're at the point where people just can't live their lives. Like with me, for instance, even though we're considered black and whatnot, I identify as African American. I think African American, we had it pretty good in the 90s, 2000s. I think African American, that was kind of the next best thing next to foundational Black Americans or whatnot, or ADOS. I preferred that. I don't get the whole where we just became black. Because once again, African American, it does tie us to where most of us, if we trace back our genetics to where we came from, the motherland. And once again, that African part of it. And then, of course, we are still Americans. We're all united. We still remember where we came from as Africans, African descendants. But guess what? We're also American, African American. So when people call me black or consider me black, I don't go around getting defended like my pronouns are African American. My pronouns are black man. I'm just like, hey, I identify as African American, but everybody calls me black. But I don't go around getting offended by all that. So they kind of miss me with all that, man. Yeah, my bad, guys. Maybe we could pull it up another time. I don't seem to be able to find it, but it was a good deep dive. Let's see if I could look it up one more time. Sorry, anybody got anything else to add? Kill the time. Sorry about this, gentlemen.
So Ben Intelligence says we got a huge win at the state convention, by the way.
Okay. Nice. Shout out.
I heard your governor is now he's against trans athletes participating with women. He thinks that's some kind of deeply unfair disadvantage for women. And, amazing what happens when you don't need to run for re-election in California again.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Man,
he ain't fooling nobody.
Yeah, let's just rip on him a little while. I think he got a new podcast out, and basically trying to, because I mean he's up, he's done running, and basically he needs to start looking at a way to, he's trying to grift his way onto the center. He has higher ambitions, and there's still that talk about Kamala possibly running for governor. So who knows, man? Crazy world we're in. Crazy world indeed. We could probably just move on. I can't seem to find the video, but yeah, if you guys just look up Tim Pool talking about, kind of did a good deep dive on just really that, really making the case for the Pentagon removing transgenders, and really just sort of the mental health issue they have and how it can be a matter of national security, literally. All right. Once again, you're watching Uncomfy Truths. You can follow us on Rumble, YouTube, all that good stuff. So our last topic we have for you guys. Sorry, I'm just kind of multitasking my way. No, I think that was our last topic actually. Yeah, I think we're
yeah, that was the last topic.
All right. That's what I'm talking about. All right, guys. Well, once again, episode 42 is in the bag. We're going to continue our regularly scheduled programming every 2 weeks, bi-weekly on weekends. So you can feel free to follow. Really quick, Pastor Green, I want everybody to go around and do a little shout out. I know Conspiracy Brother, you're really humble over there. You got the great things you're doing with Freeman Collective Detroit, and then also your YouTube channel. Give that channel a shout out. But Pastor Green, really quick, tell the audience, plug what you got going on, what you're doing, your social media as well, like Mordecai Mission and all that.
Well,
we got to get back to plugging stuff.
Our endeavor with the Mordecai Mission is that we looking to get Christians involved in government. I feel our endeavor is to get Christians elected from the White House down to the school boards, because the thing we need in this country is righteousness and common sense decency. And that has to start in government, because the leadership that's present in government now, aka the Democratic Party, you see where we need to come away from the nonsense and really come back to fundamental, basic decency in government. And we feel that no one's more qualified to do that than Christians, people with godly morals and godly sense. And that's what's needed in this country. So everyone can follow us at themordecaimission.net to find out what we're doing, what we are taking our message to the streets, whether it be coming against the abortionists, the LGBT, and yes, the Democratic Party. It's time for change in this country. We suffered too long for these last 4 years, and we need to right this ship in the country.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Pastor Green, and all the pastors out there speaking up, doing the work, forming a coalition and alliances, and all the work you're doing over there, Pastor Green. Love it. And we really enjoy having you as our co-host, kind of coming here and helping us bring more perspective. Conspiracy brother, what about you? I know I'm kind of putting you a little bit on the spot, but we gotta get back into the plugging. We gotta be plugging our stuff. So
yeah.
Go ahead.
So we do a show. You haven't known in a while with Freeman Collective. You can look at it on you find it on YouTube under Freeman Collective. We have a Odyssey and I don't think you have a Rumble, but I haven't put any videos on Odyssey in a while, and I have forgotten about it. I probably need to try to figure that out just in case. And then my own channel is A Look Underneath with Conspiracy Brother. It's a long title, but usually I simulcast Freeman's Collective and Conspiracy Brother channel together. Haven't done any new content on Conspiracy Brother either. Only have like 3 videos up on that channel. But yeah, so glad to be back with you, gentlemen. Appreciate you allowing me to spend time with you all and kind of share thoughts that I've rattling around my head every day. I'm glad we can, have these moments. It feels like moments of sanity, breaks from the wild world outside of here. So yeah, I appreciate you two being here, and Pastor Green joining us, kind of being our third musketeer.
Yes, sir.
The honor is mine.
I'm glad you feel that way. And yeah, I think that's all I have.
All right. I appreciate it. Let's definitely keep it up. And once again, I kind of put this out there just because something that can hold us accountable. We will be releasing shorter clips. Me and Conspiracy Brother talking. We might even be bringing in somebody. We'll chat after more about the details, but definitely maybe bringing in some help. Somebody we got to pay them just to cut up these clips. There's little clips that Pastor Green can put on his channel. The Conspiracy Brother you could throw on your channel. We could cross promote together. And those shorter clips of each topics and whatnot can help get us a better shot in the algorithm, because a lot of these shorter videos get a little more traction with the right thumbnail and whatnot. So I'm just kind of giving everybody listening kind of a taste of what's coming. Uncomfy Truths isn't slowing down. As far as myself, Conservative Brother Daily, I've been my video output's been a little short lately, but I'll be getting back to a few videos each week. I'm on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rumble as well. And yeah, we're just gonna keep it up, y'all. We're gonna keep doing what we're doing. And what I like to say is as our parting words each show. Remember, stay awake, not woke. Just because we're paranoid doesn't mean we're wrong. Keep thinking for yourself. And remember, if somebody else won't say it, then we will. Uncomfy Truths, we're out. We'll catch you guys in 2 weeks. See ya.
Good night.
Peace. We play some music to get us out of here.
Oh, yeah.